there something in your special book about how to do that?
Yeah, no. All right. Sounds like they're wrapping up. Was everybody angry? Yeah. It was very good. Hi, Julia. All right, it is 6:31, so we will get started as people start to make their way over in a minute. Shabbat Shalom, good to see you. And so, it's nice to be together, and I know that tonight we have a lot of people. Like I said, they are right now parting from their food. And so we're going to start off by singing How Good It Is to Be Together as people start to come and join us. I hope they can hear me. We're on page 128 with Hine Matov.
הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, ידדי ידדי. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, ידדי ידדי. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, ידדי ידדי ידדי. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד.
Again, welcome as people start to make their way over from next door. And we are going to turn now to page 142 in our Siddur for Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Zeitchem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch.
We'll turn back now to page 138 and greet Shabbat. Shabbat's supposed to feel like a festive occasion. Certainly tonight with that wonderful feast we had beforehand, it certainly felt like a festive occasion. And so it's supposed to even feel like we are at a wedding and watching God and the spirit of Shabbat come together as we all get to be guests and witnesses. Page 138.
לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Lecha dodi, lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela, shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Ishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shemo tiferet v'litila. Lecha, lecha dodi, lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki hi mekor habracha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof maaseh v'machshava tehila. Lecha dodi dodi, lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri, hitoreri, ki va'orechu mi ori, uri, shir daveri, kevod Adonai alayich nigla. Lecha dodi, lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela.
We rise and face the entrance to greet Shabbat.
Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'v'tohola, toch emunei am segula, boi hala, boi hala. Lecha dodi, lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela.
Well, now that we've taken a moment to greet Shabbat, let's take a moment and greet each other and wish each other Shabbat Shalom and introduce yourself to somebody new. Welcome them into our community. We're happy to have you all here. Hi.
I want to be your helper.
You want to be my helper? Okay. You can be my helper. Come on. Hello. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Good to see you all. Shabbat. Right, and as we come back together, you get to go with Grandma. Didn't you love that wonderful dinner we had beforehand? That was so amazing. It was one of the best dinners we've had. Sure. And so, I would love to invite our chefs tonight, Lisa and C-Mac, to light our Shabbat candles for us. And Miriam is going to be the ultimate rabbi's kid tonight and center of attention and be up here with us. So Lisa and C-Mac, thank you for such a wonderful dinner that I know you worked so hard on, and also sharing your culture with us this evening. And please, if you help us bring some light into our Shabbat. Thank you. And let's all join together now in the blessing as well.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. Thank you both. You can just keep her, I guess, if you want. She's yours. And we are going to turn now to page 144. Their problem now. And page 144 for Hatzi Kaddish.
Yitkadal ve'yitkadash shemei rabba.
Amen.
Yalma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon uvyomechon u'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imeru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevorach le'olam ulal me'omaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudesha b'richu la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma v'yimeru. Amen.
We rise for our call to worship the Baruch Hu on page 146.
Yalalai lai lai, 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 yalalai lai lai. Baruch Hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach le'olam va'ed, le'olam va'ed. Yalalai lai lai, yalalai lai lai, yalalai lai lai, yalalai lai lai.
You may be seated. We turn to page 149 and read together the top of the page. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim.
Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim.
150.
Ahavat olam beit Yisrael amcha ahavta Torah u'mitzvot ukim u'mishpatim otanu limadeta Al ken Adonai Eloheinu v'shachveinu u'vekumeinu nasiach bechukecha v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha u'v'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed ki hein chayenu ve'orech yameinu u'vahem enegen yomam לילה, ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. 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 ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו, לעולם ועד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו, לעולם ועד. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד.
Page 154.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בהם, ושבתך בביתך, ולכתך בדרך, ושוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיהם. אני אדוני אלוהיהם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיהם.
Adonai Elohim.
אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
When our people stood on the shore of the sea, they didn't expect anything to happen, anything good at least. They figured that Pharaoh's army was going to close in on them, and that was going to be the end. They were either going to be sent back to slavery or killed. And for hundreds of years, they hadn't known who God was. God hadn't really been a present part of their lives. But it was when they stood on the sea there, and they watched as the sea split before them, and that they got to rush through to the other side, that they experienced something as a community. They experienced a miracle. Maybe sometimes you hear somebody say, wow, I had a miracle that happened. Let me tell you about it. And they tell you this incredible story, and you don't know how much they're embellishing it because you weren't there. But they all got to experience this together. And we see that in Judaism, when we experience miracles, we often experience it as a community, as one. And in terms of assuring freedom for others, that's something that collectively we need to do as one to give everybody that experience together. We turn to the Mi Chamocha, our Song of Redemption, on page 158.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar ba'kodesh, norat hilot osefele, norat hilot O Sefele, Malchutecha ra'u vanecha, Okei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, Ze Eliyanu v'yamru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. V'nemar ki fada Adonai et Yaakov, ugalo miyad chazak mimenu, Baruch ata Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael.
Page 160.
Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. V'ha'amidenu malkeinu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. V'ha'amidenu malkeinu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Baruch ata Adonai, haporesh sukat shalom aleinu, v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim.
More than the Jewish people has kept Shabbat, it's Shabbat that has kept the Jewish people. We sing V'shamru on the top of page 162.
V'shameru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, ledorotam berit olam. V'shameru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, ledorotam berit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam le'olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam le'olam. V'shameru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, ledorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz, uvayom hashvi'i, Shabbat vayinafash. V'shameru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, ledorotam berit olam.
We are going to rise for the Amidah on page 164.
Adonai tifatai tiftach ufi yagi tehillateh. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai. Lai lai, yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'koneh HaKol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imaot, Umevi Geula Livnei B'neihem, Leman Shemo B'Yahva, Melech Ozer Moshiach Umagen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, V'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol Atah Rav Hoshia, Mashiv HaRuach U'morid HaGashem, Mechalkel Chayim B'chesed, Mechaye HaKol B'rachamim Rabim, Somer Noflim V'rofei Olim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar mihamocha bal gevurot umidomelach melech meimit umekayeh umatzmiach Yeshua v'ne'eman atah lechayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye HaKol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yahallelu Hasela. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
We are going to continue silently on page 172 through page 180, or you can use this as an opportunity for your own prayers and reflections, and when you're finished, you may be seated.
lo yisagoy el goy Erev, lo yilmedu od milchama, lo yisagoy el goy Erev, lo yilmedu od milchama. Don't walk in front of me, I may not follow. Don't walk behind me, I may not lead. Just walk beside me and be my friend. Together we will walk in the path of Hashem. Oh,
This time, we're going to turn our thoughts to those in our community who are in need of healing of the mind, body, and spirit, and those who are in a period of recovery as well. Our prayer for healing, the Mishaberach, can be found on page 371.
Do you want me to go? Yeah, you do the first paragraph, then after the Michelle. Mishaberach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen.
This week, we think of these members of our community and their loved ones who could use a prayer for healing. Gitalea bat Masha Hana, Harav Yehuda Leib ben Dina, Myron Yisrael ben Rachel, Daniel Meir ben Chaya Etia, Baruch ben Sarah, Itka Fega bat Gittel, Gila Chaya bat Mordechai Leib v'Gila Leah, Yosef Chaim ben Yael, Yehuda ben Hana, Tova Chava bat Chaya Rachel, Chaim Yosef ben Shana Leah. David Dowsett, I saw you here somewhere. Good to see you, my friend, always keeping you in our prayers. Yitzhak Fagilski, Rona Kipper, Fran Lappin, Tanner Light, Megan Magleby, Penny Spector, Adina Stern, and Judy Wolf. And if you have a name to share when I look in your direction, you can share with our community. River? If you're watching on our live stream, thank you for watching. I'll invite you to share a name as well.
Mishaberach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
And when we think of those in need of healing, we also always during this war have thought about our friends over in Israel. So we offer this prayer for them. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you prosper. O Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel, and strengthen the hands of those who defend our Holy Land. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Let us say, Amen. And our hope and prayer with this war is that the ultimate outcome will be peace for those living in Israel, peace for the region, and peace for the Palestinian people as well. And that we will one day know a world without terror, without war. And so let's join together in a prayer for peace. O say shalom.
O say shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, amen. Ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, Ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. V'yimeru. Amen.
Thank you, Mark. It's great to have Mark Grosser here, by the way, my good friend leading for us this evening in the absence of our cantor. And so thank you all. Give a little teaching. And about a year ago, my wife Jill and I, we had dinner with this couple. And the guy was, the husband, he was so charming and so funny and so intelligent and so well spoken. And you know, maybe it's because he was British and Americans just think British people sound like that, but he just was one of the most charismatic individuals I had ever met. And I told Jill, I was like, this guy's going places, I feel like. That guy's name was Patrick Kieran. Does anybody know who Patrick Kieran is? I saw one person on some of you don't keep up with things as much as I do, I guess. Who's Patrick Kieran? You know, you're nodding. Varun, say it again. Yeah. He is the newest apostle of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You all missed that memo, I guess. Anyways, like most of our state knows that. Way to pick and choose my audience. So he is now Elder Kieran, one of the the newest of the apostle of the quorum of 12 apostles. And in case you aren't familiar with the church's structure, there are 15 men who they see as living prophets of the church, who receive revelation from God about what direction to take the church in. And the guy at the top, we call him President Nelson. What do most people in our state just refer to him as? The prophet. The prophet. Because he is the prophet, the seer, the revelator, and the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That's President Nelson. And I've gotten the chance to get to know President Nelson some. And I got to tell you, he is still, at 99 years old, incredibly charismatic. And each of those 15 guys are incredibly charismatic people. It's how they get to be in a position like that, is by being charismatic. Not all rabbis are charismatic. You guys are lucky. But not all rabbis are charismatic. But those 15 guys, they are all very charismatic people. And with President Nelson, when I would talk to him, I said, we were talking about the revelations that he receives, and I said, President Nelson, how do people believe this, though? Like, you say God spoke to me. I said, if I said to my congregants, God spoke to me last night, and this is what God said, there'd be an email that would go out to Colomie the next day announcing a new rabbinic search committee. How is it that people believe this? And he said that, President Nelson told me it's because they have faith in this. They have faith in what I say. And I think that you need to be unbelievably charismatic to have people buy into that you receive revelation. Joseph Smith must have been an incredibly charismatic person. Because he said, I found this book, and it was revealed to me by an angel in upstate New York. Talked about how Jesus used to live in the Americas. and some other stuff that some of us would go, wait, I'm not sure about that. But people believed him. Unbelievably charismatic and was able to convince folks. And we'll be hearing a bit later about an extraordinary Muslim gentleman named Abdul Hossein Sardari. Hope I said his name correctly. And I think, if you ask me, you all know I'm a big history buff, the most amazing thing ever to happen in human history, at least in the last few thousand years, in my opinion, was the spread of Islam. Because if you think about it, the Prophet Muhammad in Islam received on December 22nd in the year 609 in a cave in Medina a revelation of the Quran. And within 102 years of him sitting in a cave in Medina and receiving this, half of the world had become Muslim. In a century, from what today would be Iran all the way to Spain, was Muslim. That's incredible. That's incredible. And when Muhammad told people, many of you have been to Jerusalem. You have seen the Dome of the Rock right next to the Western Wall. What is the Dome of the Rock for? It is the place where Muhammad supposedly ascended to heaven. And how did this story take place? Muhammad was not seen for a few days, and then people saw him and said, Muhammad, where have you been? He said, I went to Jerusalem. And when I was in Jerusalem, I stood on I forget the Arabic term for it, but the Temple Mount. And I ascended to heaven. I met with God and all the prophets of the other religions, and then was brought back here to Mecca, Medina area, the Hijaz. And people, again, and I'm not dismissing that it happened or didn't happen, but again, if I were to say this, people would not believe me. But people believed Muhammad. And it takes an incredibly charismatic person to get that, to have that buy-in. And with Muhammad, though, half the world, he was able to get within a century to become Muslim. There was one group that he struggled with. It was a group in Medina who he first came to and said, I am your prophet, I am potentially your Messiah. And it was the local Jewish community. And they said, we're not buying it. And that was very frustrating. And like I said, if I claim to have a revelation, I don't think any of you would believe me. Maybe one or two, but most of you wouldn't believe me. And that's because we are, in our nature, a skeptical people. We're skeptical. We are, perhaps for good reason, when you look at our history, not the most trusting people. And we're people who are encouraged to question and ask questions. That's what we do. And so I've told you now about the revelation of the Book of Mormon to Joseph Smith, the revelation of the Quran to Muhammad, and what our Latter-day Saints friends call living revelation still today to President Nelson. But for us as Jews, we had one major revelation. And that's what we read about in this weekend's Torah portion, Yitro. And that was the Ten Commandments and the Torah on Mount Sinai. But how did ours differ? Well, with all the love and respect I have for Moses, he was not a charismatic leader. When God picked him to be a prophet, Moses said, me? I'm an octogenarian with a stutter. I shouldn't be your prophet. Who would believe me? Who would listen to me? And so with the revelation of the Torah, the only way it would work, the only way that we would be here today, the only way we would accept it is if it were revealed to the entire Jewish people all at once. And that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. And we read about how they saw smoke, they saw flashing lights, the earth was shaking. They all experienced revelation, and we even learn in Midrash that every Jewish soul, past, present, and future, stood together at Sinai and received that. And on Saturday morning, when we call up somebody for Hagbah and they lift the Torah, they turn it and lift it up like this, and we all stand and point our pinkies, and that's because we are reenacting that experience we had, not when somebody told us, hey, I found the Torah, but when we all received the Torah, when we all witnessed and experienced revelation in that moment. It was the same thing with the plagues on Egypt and the splitting of the sea. We had to witness that together. We wouldn't buy it from Moses. I mean, you don't hear Moses telling the people of Israel, we read about in the Torah, how he saw a burning bush, but he didn't go to the people of Israel right afterwards and say, guess what, everybody? I saw this bush that was on fire, and it started talking to me, and it wasn't burning up, and it was God. He doesn't say all this because he knows people wouldn't believe him. He knows that for Jews, we need to experience things together. We go through stuff together. And that is what is in our very nature. In some religions, like for instance Christianity, it's not that hard to be a Christian on an island by yourself. Because Christianity requires really one thing. That is believing the words of John 3:16, that God so loved the world that he gave his one begotten Son, and whoever believeth in him shall not perish but be given life eternal. If you believe that, you're a Christian, and you're a good Christian. But for Judaism, it's more than just creedal. We can't have a minyan on a deserted island. We need people to be together to be able to be Jews who do our rituals. Because it's very hard to be Jewish on our own. Judaism is not just creedal, it's experiential. It's communal. And Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel talked about this experience of radical amazement. When we see something that might appear to be mundane, but when we encounter it, we find something holy and beautiful in it. And what we learned from this weekend's Torah portion, from the revelation at Sinai, is that what we learn is that we can't just tell people about something that happened to us, or tell them about something that's important to us. We need to involve them in it. We need to bring them with us and bring them out. We're going to hear in a bit from my friends at the Baskerville Institute. I love this organization. They'll talk more about it, I'm sure. But a big part of what they do, correct me if I'm wrong, is bring encounters between the Iranian people in Iran and the West. Because if my friend Dr. Bakhtiari over there was just to go back to his native Iran and say, oh, I know this rabbi is a nice guy, I went to the Jewish community, they're nice. No, I know Zionists, they're nice, good people. Who's going to believe that? If you tell me that Iranians are good people, but I don't know any of them, how am I going to believe that? But when we can come together and we can experience things together, that's when we become believers. That is what the requirement is for us as Jews. And so, when we have something that's important to us, when we want people to get together and to create change, for us as Jews, we can't do it alone. We have to bring each other with us. Shabbat Shalom. I want to again thank Mark for helping lead with me this evening. And also, I want to thank our Staff I see here this evening, our Executive Director Danny Berman, our Office Assistant Danielle Music, our Program Coordinator Galit Livne, as well as our Office and Membership Director Lisa Kaufman. I think Paul from our maintenance team is around here somewhere as well. I want to thank the Salt Lake City Police Department for being here as always to keep us safe. And also I always love to, again, I want to thank the Kaji Norris for a wonderful dinner too. I want to, did I miss any staff by the way? Okay, I hope not. And want to give a big shout out to our members of our Board of Trustees who I see here this evening, Dov DeLay, Faye Lincoln, Larry Green. Anybody I miss? I don't want to ever miss anybody. Would one of the three of you like to make some announcements? Faye? Danny pointed at Faye. Come on up, Faye. Good to see you. You got voluntold.
Yep, they're long.
Boy's got a lot going on here.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you to Rabbi Spector and Mark Grosser for leading us this evening. Thank you to Lisa and Seamak Kajanori for preparing our wonderful dinner tonight, and to Galit for coordinating this special event, and a special welcome to Dr. Bakhtari as well when he speaks tonight. So following our service, please join us to welcome Dr. Baman Bakhtiori, Executive Director of the Baskerville Institute, which is dedicated to fostering understanding and respect between Americans and Iranians. He will be presenting on Abdul Hussein Sardari, the Iranian Schindler. Our Sunday schmooze this weekend is at 9:30 a.m. with Alana Blumenthal, Director of the Brigham City Museum and Collections Care Specialist. Alana will give a short presentation about unique Judaica and how to preserve your object of personal significance. Participants are encouraged to bring their Judaica from home and be prepared with questions. Our Jewish Camp Fair is also this Sunday at noon. It's been recognized that children who attend Jewish summer camps are considerably more likely to retain a strong Jewish identity and affiliation. On Sunday, if you visit all the camp tables, your name will be entered to a drawing for $250 for camp scholarships. Camp scholarships are available for all first and second year campers, as well as need-based scholarships. This Tuesday evening at 6 p.m., we'll be holding a Hamantashen baking class. Each participant will go home with a half a dozen Hamantashen. Space is limited, so hurry up and register today. Thank you to everyone who helped make Mitzvah Day this past weekend such a success. We made 738 sack lunches and 100 hygiene kits for homeless Utahns, planted 300 seedlings for Esther's Garden, made 50 fleece scarves and 100 warm hats, decorated 50 cards to send to some of the thousands of Israeli kids displaced by the Hamas attack of October 7th, wrote dozens of letters to Utah policymakers, and donated 22 pints of blood. Save the dates for these upcoming events. Bowling with KAJY on February 11th, Shir Shabbat and Shabbat dinner on February 16th, Rosh Chodesh Women's Group Paint and Sip Night on February 20th. That sounds good. Family Shabbat dinner and service on February 23rd, Coffee and Community on February 25th. We need volunteers to help bake Hamantashen for the congregation. Come make a mitzvah and spend time with other members in the kitchen. Tax statements will be sent by request this year. Contact the office if you would like yours. And thank you, a special thank you to our volunteers, donors, members, and guests for your participation and support. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Faye. Appreciate all your leadership. And Faye, also want to give you a shout out because Faye is our chairperson of our Adult Education Committee, so she has been involved in planning this evening as well. We are going to move into the concluding part of our service with the Aleinu. on page 586. We'll do the Olenu at the bottom of the page. How about our guest from Baskerville Institute? Would you like to come up here and open our ark for us? Give you that honor. Come on up, Baskerville friends. We're thrilled to have you here. Come on up, come on up. Don't be shy. Come on up. Lily's welcome too. Everybody's welcome. Come on up. All right, and I will invite you all to please rise. Here, you'll just go open those doors right there for us.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, lateit gedula liyotzeh bereshit, shelo asanu kegoyei haratzot, velo samanu kemishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Okay, you can go ahead and close the doors.
Thank you. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. At this time, we think of those whom death has recently taken from us, and those who have died in this season in years past, and those who we draw into our hearts with our own as we remember them. If you hear the name of a loved one, I'll invite you to rise upon hearing their name. In the period of Shloshim, the 30-day period of mourning, we remember Bonnie Rosen, grandmother of Hannah Rosenberg, and also the following local Jewish individuals who are laid to rest in our cemetery: Leslie Strauss, Ilya Gittin, and Gary Stollerman. And this week we commit, and also, of course, as we do every week, we think of those who have lost their lives defending the state of Israel or as a result of terror in the last 30 days. And this week we commemorate these Yortzites, the anniversary of the passing of these loved ones: Jay Abramowitz, Alvin Ernesto Alvarado, Frida Lee Auerbach, Max Avner, Louis Berry, Gregory Balin, Todd Bird, James M. Birdwell, Nathan Brief, Louis Edelman, Charles Feinberg, Harold Finling, Charles Goldstein, Rebecca Ricky Green, Paulina Grossman, Dora Gus, Stuart Hayden, Roy E. Hines, Irene Kahn, David Kahn, Ida Auerbach Lazarus, Morris Levin, Max Levitt, Hazel Lieberman, Coleman Littman, Annette Lovinger, Jack Miller, Melissa Ann Powers, Robert Rinsky, Diane Greenberg Roseman, Jack Roseman, Barnett Rossman, Reuben Samuel, Louis Seidman, Irving I. Solomon, Louis D. Spector, Elizabeth Verson, Rostel B. Woolner, and Margaret Yarmatter. And if you have a name to add, I'll invite you to rise when I look in your direction to share with us. And if you're watching on our live stream, I'll invite you to share name as well. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for a blessing If you're in mourning or is your tradition to do so, you're invited to rise. We're on page 598. Yitkadal v'kadash shemei rabah.
Amen.
Be'alman divrach hirute v'imich malchute. V'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'haye dechol beit Yisrael. Ba'agalau v'izman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehi shmei rabba mivrach le'olam almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha b'rechu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tishbe'ata v'ne'emata. Da'ami ram be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imru. Amen. O say shalom b'imromav. Huya say shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imru. Amen. May source peace and peace to all who are mourning. Comfort the bereaved among us. Again, we say amen. And as we have been throughout the war since October 7th, I'll invite you to rise for Israel's national anthem, Hatikva, which we will conclude with, which you can find on page
678.
678. Thank you.
Kol od balevav pnima, nefesh Yehudi homiya, ufrate mizrach kadima, ayin lezion Sophia. Tikvateinu, hatikva bar shnot alpayim, liot hamachoshi be'artzeinu, Eretz Zion, Yerushalayim, liot hamachoshi be'artzeinu, Eretz Zion, Yerushalayim.
We'll remain standing for Kiddush. It's 123, I want to say.
It is 123. Yes, 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu. V'shabbat kodesho v'yahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom tehila lemikra kodesh zecher litziyat mitzrayim ki vanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amin v'shabbat kodshecha ve'ava uvratzon hilchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh Shabbat. Amen.
L'chaim. And we have here, made by our friend Moshe, I guess we already ate earlier, but in case you're planning to eat something a little later, we'll do motzi as well.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'tei avot.
Avon. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom,
And you-
Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom.
Thank you. You may be seated, and Yasher Koach, big Yasher Koach to Mark for leading us this evening. Thank you, Mark. Wonderful job. Well, thank you so much. It's wonderful to see such a great turnout this evening. I know that Friday night often competes with Shabbat dinners and such. But for us to have a wonderful dinner here, again, thanks to my friends of the Coney Kajanori family, and also to hear from another one of my very good friends, a wonderful presentation this evening. So let me introduce my friend to you. Dr. Bahman Bakhtiari is the executive director of the Baskerville Institute. More notably, he is the husband of Lily, who is here as well, who's a professor of Persian, I believe, correct? The Farsi language at the university. And we're honored to have you here as well. And the Baskerville Institute is a nonprofit organization dedicated to fostering understanding and respect between Americans and Iranians. And I've come to love this organization. He received his PhD in international law and government from the University of Virginia, and Dr. Bakhtiari has published extensively on Iranian culture and politics, including the books Parliamentary Politics in Revolutionary Iran, Institutionalization of Factional Politics, and Iran, Sharia Politics and the Transformation of Islamic Law, and Bob Hefner's Sharia Politics, Islamic Law, and Society in the Modern World, co-authored with Asef Bayat, among dozens of other publications. He has held academic and administrative positions at American University in Washington, D.C., the University of Maine, American University in Cairo, and the University of Utah. In addition to his work on Iranian culture and politics, Dr. Bakhtiari has also researched and written about the development of diverse civil society institutions in Iran, from education and sports to film, music, and art. He has even advised on wrestling diplomacy and helped organize wrestling events between the United States and Iran, demonstrating his commitment to promoting understanding and respect between the two nations. Dr. Bakhtiari is a respected scholar with a deep understanding of Iranian culture and politics. He is also a passionate advocate for peace and understanding between the United States and Iran. And also, since it is Shabbat, he prepared a wonderful PowerPoint presentation for us that I said, we are difficult people on Shabbat. And so we have here, our whole Save the Trees holiday was last week. So now this week we got all of our printed out versions of this, a bit more Shabbat-friendly version, which is the PowerPoint presentation slides on paper. And so with that, my friend Dr. Bakhtiari, please come tell us about this incredible gentleman. I will also say that I consider myself very well versed on the Holocaust and quite knowledgeable compared to most. And yet, this is a story that I actually don't know and haven't heard. And so I look forward to learning from you and hearing about this extraordinary individual. All right, my friend.
Thank you very much, respected. Thank you for that kind introduction. And it is a pleasure for me to be here. Shabbat Shalom. And myself, my wife Lily Alavi, who Rabbi Spector kindly introduced me as Lily's husband. I think she had been here before. She has given a talk for you before. So, and our staff assistant, Delara and Aaron. So I want to thank, first of all, Rabbi Spector for really including me in this program, Rabbi.
Thrilled to have you. We're very excited about it.
I want to thank Gillette for the program, also Faye for those kind words you mentioned, and most important, Siamak and Lisa, because when it comes to giving a talk on Iran, you have to have Persian food before it. And you have to have a Persian food that not everybody knows about, because they must have known something about my lecture topic tonight. what they brought for you was Sardari's favorite food. And it's been so many archival materials that I had to read for information, but I had to tolerate his discussion about how he cooked fish and Jew. And all of that suffering that I made by going through archival materials, read about fish and Jew, I think he's very gratified tonight. I think he's very gratified that we recognize them for this, what he called food diplomacy. It is an interesting topic, as mentioned by Rabbi Spector. Really, our knowledge about Muslim world, Muslims who had a role in rescuing Jews, and overall, how Muslims and Jews have interacted. How Muslim and Jews have interacted throughout history. When considering Holocaust heroes, the first person that comes to your mind is Oskar Schindler. He was a German businessman who saved 1,200 Jews in Poland. But at the same time that he was doing that, there was another person in Paris who was saving Jews, and his name was Sardari. They both never communicated with each other. They didn't know. They were moved to do this because of their humanitarian instinct. Because of their instinct, they have to stand up for humanity. So whether it was Oskar Schindler or Sardari, they both were doing the same thing. Now, we know more about Oskar Schindler because of the film. We haven't had a film about Abdul Hussein Sardari. And we also have to look at it and see why there is that absence of knowledge about him. My interest in Sardari started when I had heard about him, I read about him as a diplomatic person in the embassy of Iran in 1940, and then I've seen reports from Iranian papers that he had done something with Iranian passports. They were not clear what he had done because they clearly did not want to talk about his role in the Holocaust in a Muslim country. They kept referring to something he had done with Iranian passports. So that piqued my curiosity, and I said, well, maybe if I go to the Vad Yashem Center in Jerusalem. How many of you have been there? How many of you have been to the Holocaust Center? How many of you have checked the list of countries that people who saved Jews come from? How many of you gone check the list of the countries? Now, we have, what, 2 countries on that list, Turkey and Egypt. And Iran is not listed. So I had a research assistant there who worked with David Menashe, my colleagues, and send them on the cruise trip to say, find out why isn't he listed? Well, they didn't have a good answer. They did not have a good answer. What was speculated was that putting Iran on that website list will automatically result in tensions. Iran and Israel are in tension today. We do not want to create tension. So they asked this research assistant, do you have any verifiable documents? Can you bring statements and testimonies? So give him a huge list, which they're all available. And that kind of piqued my interest. I said, why? Abdul Hussein Sardari's name is not on that list, but Dr. Mohammed Emri from Egypt, deservedly on that list. Salahuddin Olkman from Turkey is on that list. They're the only Muslim. Then it occurred to me that today we are so engaged in the Western European narratives of Holocaust. We're so engaged in terms of how people who saved Jews, they were all in the West. As soon as we hear that a Muslim did that, we automatically doubt it. As Rabbi Spector says, we are human beings who doubt everything. So that's the first thing that hit me, that maybe we need to do more to inform our community about his acts, about his role, and kind of promote that he get a list on the righteous list that they have in Holocaust Center. So I started with that, and then as I was doing the research again, I came across another absent idea. How many of you know about the Grand Mosque of Paris? that was built in 1926. How many of you know this Grand Mosque of Paris in 1940s saved 300 Jewish children? And do we have information about it? Yes, we do. There's a book, just search it on Amazon. But has anybody come forward to say, how did those 300 children end up there? How do those Muslims who were there took care of them? They ended up there because their parents were separated. Their parents were separated. They were children without parents. They just brought them to the mosque, and people over there in the mosque had to take care of them. So the rector of the mosque immediately registered them as a Muslim, immediately issued certificates, Algerian, Moroccan. And when the Nazi forces showed up, they saw these little kids as Muslim kids. Now, it is an important story. It's an important story that that thing was happening in the Grand Mosque of Paris, and Sardari was doing something in the embassy. First, let me go a little bit over who this gentleman Sardari was. He was a young diplomat in around 1937 when he was appointed to the post of the consular affairs in Iranian embassy in Paris. He was born in 1914 into a very rich, wealthy family. His mother, Afsar Saltaneh, she was related to the ruling king. His father, Adib Saltaneh, was a powerful, rich merchant. They had 7 kids. He was one of them. And through the 7 kids, obviously, the mother and the family that he had, they preferred the older one, Yahya. They preferred always the older one and the younger one. What did they do with Abdul Hussein? They confined him to a servant's headquarters. They assigned servants for him, for the servants to take care of the kid. At age 5, his father died. His father died in Iran when Abdul Hussein Sardari was 5 years old. At age 8, his mother decided to send the kid to England, to a boarding school, without having a relative there, without speaking the language, without even knowing where he's going to. And when he got to England, he was totally abandoned. He felt abandoned. The separation was very important. So his sister, his older sister, 4 years older than him, Malika Ghots, became really his real mother. She started to write to him, she started to ask him what he needs, and began gradually to take care of Abdul Hussein. Malik Ghots married a powerful Iranian official named Anushiravan Sepahbudi, very powerful person. Once they married, their lines of resources, support for Abdul Hussein became clear. His sister and her sister's husband became really the parents for Abdul Hussein. So when he finished his England school with flying colors, he was sent to Geneva to study law. Again, Mr. Sepahbudi was also in Geneva, powerful person. He was appointed as Iran's ambassador to the League of Nations at that time. So as soon as he took care of Sardari finished the Geneva Law School. After Geneva Law School, he ended up working for the Iranian embassy in Geneva, and Sepahbudi brought him in. At that time, it was really difficult to understand that people like Sardari, who come from prominent families, very connected, they did not have to go through the regular process of ending up in a position. They always ended up in that position because of family background, connections, powerful connections, and ability to perform. They had to perform. So here, Abdul Hussein Sardari performed. He performed with flying colors, finished his law degree, and went on to work at the embassy. Now, it is interesting to see the letter Sepahbudi wrote about Sardari at that time. Sepahbudi wrote the letter to the Iranian Foreign Ministry official recommending him for a post. He said, he used a language like that. He speaks English with the fluency of an English gentleman. He speaks German with the fluency of a German lawyer. And he speaks French with the fluency of a cultured Parisian. But if you think that he has been overseas at a young age, You're mistaken. He speaks Persian fluently, and thank God he's from an aristocratic family. He has a fantastic handwriting. Having elegant handwriting was as important as knowing the language. That was a letter his sister's husband sent. Immediately after that letter, Iranian Foreign Ministry, not having somebody fluent in 3 languages, not having somebody knowing the law, and not having somebody who's so aware, they immediately said Paris is a perfect position for him. So they appointed him to Paris in 1937. Sardari, when he went to Paris again, remember he was separated from Iran for such a long time. He arrived in Paris without a single friend again. He had to start all over again. In 1937, everybody knew we had about 150 to 200 Iranian Jews in Paris at that time. These Iranian Jews had left Iran after the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917 and the anti-Semitism that had come in, most of them businessmen. They left Iran for France. Families like Moradi family, very well-known Iranian Jewish family who established their businesses in Paris at that time. Before going to Paris, they were the advisors for gifts to the kings when they traveled. So if King of Persia was going to travel to Europe, Moradi was the person who advised him what gifts to take, what antiques to take, how best to represent Persia. Because of that connection, Moradi had a lot of influential diplomats. So he worked out his visa, moved his whole family in 1926 to Paris. With him came other Iranian Jews, gradually, and he brought other Iranian Jews. So by the time Sardari arrived in 1937, it was estimated that we had 150 Iranian Jews in Paris, very active, successful business people. Sardari in the beginning was aware of the German Nazi invasions coming. If you go back to history books, concerns about Hitler started around 1933. Between 1933 and 1937, there was a lot of activities. Hitler had started rebuild his army, violating the World War I Versailles Treaty, had gone back to rearming Germany. Many of the diplomats knew at that time that Hitler is beginning to plan something. This is 1937. So in 1937, Sardari very intelligently started to build network with the Iranian Jewish community. Now, just because you are in the Iranian embassy, it doesn't mean you know where the Iranian citizens are in the embassy of that country. You have to build a list. Just because, for example, American embassy would not know how many Americans are going to London and back, right? So Sardari had to find out how these Iranian businesses, Jewish businesses, are doing because they could be in trouble. So he connected to another Iranian physician named Dr. Badei. Dr. Badei had powerful patients in the government. And by saying powerful patients, meaning being a physician at that time was a very powerful role. And Dr. Badei connected Sardari to several powerful officials, local officials. And Sardari was known for giving huge entertainment parties with Fes and June that we talked about. So he made the Iranian embassy at that time a major entertainment place. Now, he was not doing this as an entertainment to enjoy. He was building network for future actions. He knew he has to do something. He has to get the collaboration of the local officials, and then he has to come up with a story about why Iranian Jews are not the same as European Jews. And he had to use all the stationery, all the passport in the embassy, and begin to work out, okay, how do we save our Iranian Jews from this disaster that is coming? So he met another doctor named Dr. Asef Al-Shildi. Dr. Asef was born in Samarkand. He was a Russian Jew, and Dr. Asef had this natural tendency to just associate with Iranians and Persians. Anybody who knows about the history of Samarkand and Bukhara, you will know that in Iran, those cities are worshipped as their cultural places. So Dr. Asef met Sardari. Sardari impressed them with his knowledge of the Jews in Samarkand and Bukhara. Sardari gave Dr. Asif actually a lecture about what the Central Asian Jews are doing. Then, after their meetings, they came up with a plan. And they came up with a plan that we have a certain numbers of Jews from Central Asia, we have certain number of Jews, Iranian businessmen, and we have certain number of non-Iranian Jews who have either married or working with the Iranians and partners. They have to be looked after. So he and Dr. Asif came up with a plan. And the plan was to make an argument in paperwork that Iranian Jews are not the same as European Jews. Now, he came up with this fabricated study narrative. He said Iranian Jews are actually Muslims. They're following the theology of Moses. They're mosaics, he called them. They don't celebrate Jewish holidays. They celebrate Persian holidays like Nowruz. They don't speak Hebrew or Yiddish. They speak Persian. Their kids' names are not even distinguished from Muslim names. These people in our country are tied by one element. They're all part of the Aryan race. Aryan race, the race that Hitler wanted to make as the race of the world, as a superior race. Sardari came with this fantastic argument. So he built it, he wrote on the stationery, he communicated with Nazi officials, and the process started taking over. And then he, without the authority of his government in Tehran, he made the embassy available for Iranian Jewish businesses to bring their properties there. Very famous Iranian Jewish business antique owner, Haim Sasan, his grandchildren are in Los Angeles right now, and it's fascinating what they will tell you. They tell you that Sardari opened the basement of the embassy to their father's store, and the father brought all the antiques, all the expensive things he had into the embassy. And Sardari registered everything as property of Iran, as property of Persian Empire. Underneath of it, he put, these are all given to us for gifts to be given to you guys. And it worked. It worked, and people started to kind of planning it. So Sardari, starting this process, realized that he cannot deal with 250 Jews and 100 or so from Central Asia and all that. He has to put something together. So he called the Moradi family and some of the influential people of the Iranian Jewish family into a meeting and said, elect 5 representatives. You need to elect 5 representatives secretly and put those 5 secret representatives in touch with me. I only will deal with them. They will only receive the paperwork we are doing. Unless you elect those 5 representatives, we are not going to work. And the Iranian Jewish community, as we know in Los Angeles, they're not very good when it comes to working together. And here, it was another case study of Sardari creating that unity among the Iranian Jewish community. They elected 5 people, 5 people. One of them was Dr. Asif. And Sardari said, he's not Iranian. They said, no, actually he's Iranian. He actually doesn't realize that Samarkand, the place he was born, was part of Persia. And so Sardari just went ahead. They came up with this huge plan. And he started, first of all, identifying the names. He wrote all the names down, wrote the number of relatives, everything. He went back to the historical repository of passports in the embassy, found out that there are 1,500 blank passports in the embassy. The good thing about the Iranian passport was that it doesn't have a question on religion, but it does have a question on race. And he immediately came up with this idea that I need to use these passports. First of all, to create an escape route, to make sure these Jews are not punished or picked on, and he started shaping it up. He needed money. In 1941, when he started doing this, allied countries, US and Britain, invaded Iran. They invaded Iran in September of 1941, in the middle of the work Sardari was doing. Iranian government later, put in by the allied powers, immediately sent a telegram to Sardari that you should return to Iran now. You're no longer a diplomat. Well, Sardari did not agree. He did not accept the return order. This is an area of how I think we can gauge the bravery and courageousness of a person. When a person is doing this, saving the Jews, making an argument, you could say, okay, he's doing it because of his Iranian nationality, his commitment to the homeland. But when a person takes a position against his government and says, you're not going to stop me, that is a verifiable position that this person wanted to help the Jews, no matter what. So they cut him off from his salary. They cut off his money. He had to live on the money from the Moradi family and Sasan family, the Iranian Jewish community. They lived together. They finally, by the 1943-44, he had saved close to 2,500 Iranian and non-Iranian Jews. He, in one of the paperwork that I went and saw, which was fascinating, he wrote this document that says he has come across a study of Judaism, Islam, by a very well-known scholar and philosopher. He said, in that study, he said, we don't call Iranians Iranian Jews. We call them Jugatis. He just came up with the term. And he just said, they're not really Jews, and he came up with the term Jugatis. And we really, Iranian Jews cannot be classified like European Jews for the reasons that I mentioned. Here is a study that says ethnographically, they are first Aryan. Whatever they're doing with Judaism is just a theology. And he said, we cannot blame them because Cyrus the Great was part of their culture. And we cannot ignore the fact that Iranians had this connection. So he wrote this fascinating document asking, for example, the Nazi officials, do you know about the Babylonian Talmud in Israel? They all know. It's the second oldest Talmud. It is written by Iranian Jews. It is the source of religious doctrine. And he said, do you know in 240 or 300 AD, Persian language was adopted in Jerusalem as a literary language. And no, we didn't know that. But it was. Persian was a language adopted in Jerusalem at that time because of the Talmud and the Imperial. So he used history. He used his ability as a diplomat and lawyer. He used the resources that he had. He figured out the best way he could save Jews, Iranian and non-Iranian Jews, must document it, must be sure that these documents appear real. And it applies both to non-Iranians and Iranians. So he is a long story. He saved significant number of people. Also, it's a long story that he was a single man. He never had an opportunity to get married. He was a very, very focused on his job, workaholic, if you want to put it. Sometimes he drank too much. Sometimes he partied too much. He was typical, as we say in the Persian, a single Persian man. But it was that other side of him that had dignity. There is something in Persian that translates dignity, honor. There was that dignity in him. There was that honor in him. And it is time that we recognize what he has done. And the reason today we don't see his name, I think, and we don't see Yad Vashem and others acknowledge him, is not really that they don't know about his heroism. They know about his heroism. They don't think it is a good thing to put on the website. That's it. But we need to kind of push that and say, since when we don't do that? And another thing is that because of the harsh rhetoric between the Israeli government, Iranian government, it is very doubtful if you want to talk about an Iranian Muslim saving Jews today. I mean, just like Rabbi said, the instinct is doubt. So the center says, why should we get even involved in this thing? But other centers have done it. Other centers have done it. Simon Wiesenthal Center in LA in 2004 acknowledged Zardari. If you go to their centers, you see their name. If you also see the Milken Center in New York, is in the pamphlet I gave you, they put a competition for high school students to do a painting of unsung heroes of history. Guess who won the painting award this May? A Chinese-American high school student drawing picture of Sardari. And when the center awarded him that, believe me, many people on the board were asking, who is Sardari? So a high school student found out that he was a hero, but the center will not get it. So finally, I'm always frequently asked, so what? We learn all these things about this Muslim Iranian. We learn all these things today. So what? What does it mean today? We have war, we have conflict. Muslim-Jewish dialogue is at a crucial point. It is a situation of invectives, accusation, right? Constant hostility. So naturally, many people ask me, what is the purpose of learning about these people? I tell them that I cannot answer those questions, that why we have so much hostility. But I can tell you that today we still have Sardaris among us, and we don't know about it. And if we don't know about it, then later, when something important happens, we are not there to acknowledge it. So one current Sardari that I think many people don't know about is the director of the Holocaust and Genocide Center at Manhattan College. Do you guys know who that is? Is a Muslim woman from Pakistan, practicing Muslim, leading a Holocaust center. Her name is Mehnaz Afridi. She has written this fantastic book called Shoah and the Muslim World. Check it out, Shoah and the Muslim World. And in that book, Mehnaz clearly talks about the problems that we see in the Muslim world today and how Muslims, they need to come together and acknowledge those problems. And as long as we don't acknowledge it, we will have problems. So Mehnaz Afridi, to me, is another Sardari walking among us. Check it out. There's an article in the New York Times about her. When she was hired, you wouldn't believe what kind of emails, messages the college got when they announced that they have hired a practicing Muslim. But after a year, she's the most popular person right now in that. So I always mention Mehnaz's case as another Sardari among us, a practicing Muslim dedicated to Jewish-Muslim dialogue. Another person that I frequently mention is the late Rabbi Jonathan Sacks. How many of you have heard of Rabbi Jonathan Sacks? Well, that's great. So Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, I think he is another Sardari among us. He wrote this fantastic book called Dignity of Difference. Rabbi Sacks confronted the September 11 Islamophobia, the continuous tension going on. And in this book, Dignity of Difference, again, that I highly recommend to you, he wrote this. This is a book about globalization, its challenges, its benefits, its sufferings, its resistances and resentments. While many books explore the emerging global landscape, few address the moral and spiritual issues involved. Yet these are crucial if we are to enhance human dignity and improve the chances of peace. Later he said, the enduring nature of the great faith, outlasting political systems and ideology, suggests they speak to something intrinsic in the human character. The book, it is exactly what Sardari was doing. Rabbi Sackler put these words down, that let's not lose sight of how our religion, our faith, needs to continue in this world and not get involved in conflict. And conflict is not to our interest. So when I read these books and when I go through Sardari's case, I always remember that I'm looked at in some of the places I give this presentation. People are looking at me as, is he talking about the same Iran that we came to hear about? Is he talking about the same Iran that Ayatollah Khamenei is ruling it? Maybe he's talking about a different Iran. It takes like 20 minutes before they realize, no, I'm talking about the same Iran. So I always conclude with this paragraph for them. Tonight, we have glimpsed a different story about Iran, one where courageous individuals like Hossein Sardari defied expectations, and stood for global peace and prosperity. We are reminded that the fight for human dignity knows no nationality or creed, and that heroes can emerge from unexpected corners of the world. Let's never forget that governments rise and fall, but the bridges built by acts of humanity, like Sardari's, endure. It's the actions of the Iranian people, not their government, that will ultimately define their nation. Thank you.
That was wonderful and fascinating. Thank you. And I think probably Dr. Shim's going to get a few emails from this congregation next week. That was absolutely, just out of curiosity, do you think that there's a fear with Mr. Sardari that his descendants might be, if he was acknowledged, do you think that they might have some ramifications to them?
Well, he didn't have family,
Okay.
so he had two very well-known nephews, Amir Abbas Hoveyda, who was prime minister of Iran for many years before the revolution, and Feridun Hoveyda, his brother, who was ambassador to UN. Both have passed away. Okay. And Feridun Hoveyda actually took his case to the Simon Wiesenthal Center in LA.
Really?
In 2004. He was the one who said, here is my uncle's work, acknowledge it. So I don't think there is any more reason for that, to do that. I think the lack of acknowledgement has also done something that we always regret later on. Iranian regime, when came to that whole Holocaust denial phase of Ahmadinejad, they produced a television serial called Zero Center, Madar Sefr. It was about Sardari. They wanted to show that this man was a corrupt man, he was paid by powerful Jews, don't believe in his story. The Iranian government put that thing out. Now, they put that thing out because they felt there would be some acknowledgement of this man outside and they need to step forward. So if we don't do that acknowledgement, Rabbi, I think governments who have it to their interest to undermine his cause, they will do things. So it is really up to us to kind of promote and inform people about this man.
I totally agree. So I'll send an email. However, when they hear that, like, one of the most prominent rabbis in the state of Utah is on this, but one of my favorite stories out of Israel is there was a Bosnian Muslim family that was acknowledged as righteous among nations, and then during the Bosnian genocide, Israel flew a private military jet to Bosnia, took that whole family, that Muslim family, brought them to Israel and settled them there to help rescue them. So hopefully these stories can build bridges. I was curious, does anybody else have any questions for Dr. Bakhtiari about what we heard? Laura, good to see you.
Yes, there were about 4 of them who have verified that their grandparents were saved by Sardari. They provided testimonial, verifiable affidavit. They were in Los Angeles. So that thing has been done. I think the problem is that nobody follows up on these events and these stories. I think one of them could be simply the sheer bureaucracy of the thing getting lost in the middle of all this conflict. I think the fact that in Los Angeles, they have acknowledged them in Simon Wiesenthal Center, let's not forget Los Angeles has a very vivacious, engaged Iranian Jewish community.
Over 100,000.
Yeah, in 100. If you ask any Iranian in Beverly Hills or Tarzana, that our friend came from, do you know of Sardari? So, of course we know of Sardari. But if you ask an American sitting next to them, they say, well, who is he? So there is also a problem that the Iranian community, Iranian Jewish community has not done enough to make sure this person is acknowledged. I always look at my colleagues and this criticism of always blaming the other for everything. It is something that we need to acknowledge that within our own community, we also fall short. We need to step up. I mean, Iranians should step up to promote Sardari, not Americans. So every time I meet with my Iranian Jewish friends in Los Angeles, they always ask me, how is your Sardari project going?
I love that.
And I kind of wonder about it if they asking me that question, if they want to get involved or not to get involved.
And when I was in Morocco, the people that were bragging about what they did in that Muslim country to help their Jews during World War II, this could be a real source of pride, I'm sure, for many Iranians. Are there other questions? Yeah, please, go ahead, Louis.
That's a very good question. Thank you. I think I thought that in academia, my role is not being fulfilled simply by writing articles. I've taught at American University in Cairo. I've published on Sharia law, Iran. I just realized that publishing and working in academia is not enough to build the bridge of understanding. So I engaged later into philanthropic work, and this institute that I've founded with support of many is really what interests me was that this institute named after a 24-year-old American Presbyterian missionary from Nebraska, Howard Baskin, who went to Princeton. From Princeton, he went to Persia in 1907 to teach. A year later, he was so upset about the misery of the Persians, the famine, the constitutional revolution. He joined the constitutional forces as an American and fought for Iranians. He is buried in Iran right now. He is the most revered person in Iran today. So I think we need to bring up more Baskerville stories. Sardari is another Baskerville, but he's a Baskerville from Iran to the West. Howard Baskerville came from Nebraska to Iran, but Sardari is a Baskerville from Iran to the West. And the more we do to connect these two travelers in history, I think the more contribution we make to the population and information that we want to do. So that's how I started it. My other thing that has started me this thing is that I realized that when we talk about friendship between Americans and Iranians, it is not that easy. Iranians within themselves, they need to build friendship. Iranians constitute Azerbaijani Turks, Baluchis, right? Or Lor, and they speak several. Iran itself is a mosaic of different cultures and languages. We need to first get along with each other as friendship before we want to get along with the world. So I realized that that is so important to bring my Iranian colleagues to meetings, to kind of gatherings, and pose those difficult questions in front of them. And I think those are the elements that has got my interest in the project that I'm doing.
Time for a couple more questions. There's a Dilf, please.
Okay, yeah. I don't know anything about specific about that, but I know that Sardari, after the war ended, he stayed in Paris. He met a very attractive Chinese opera singer.
There's the
And
connection.
they fell in love. He called her Chin Chin. And the attractive opera singer that Sardari fell in love, they had a very close relationship, suddenly decided, I think it was in 1948, to go back to China. Now, at that time, China was in a civil war. The Chin Chin came from a Chiang Kai-shek family. She suddenly decided to go to China and never came back. Completely left Sardari despondent and never heard from him. So that's what happened after the war immediately to him. The second thing after the war, he had to fight the recall of the Iranian government. He had to address that. He used every connection he had. Finally, in 1952, he went to Iran. As soon as he arrived at a port of entry, guess what happened to him? They arrested him. They arrested him for abuse of government resources, passports, and moving without authority. He was in jail for 12 days. Again, his great uncle that he called Sebahbodi, who was very powerful, came to his rescue. Another thing that was very coincidental to Sardari when he got arrested, Iran from 51 to 53 was in turmoil. There was a nationalist movement. Finally, CIA and MI6 intervened in August of 1953 to overthrow that government. So again, the foreign ministry that lodged that complaint against him could not pursue it because of the chaos. So he got a pardon from the Shah. He got the pardon from the Shah, but his reputation was totally damaged because as a diplomat. The problem in the Middle East is that they would not talk about what he did for Holocaust. They would not talk about what he did for Jews as a credit to him. They kept saying he did not perform his diplomatic role appropriately. In 1963, he finally got a job with a national Iranian oil company, and they needed somebody who speaks language like him, is aware, and he got a job in London. He lived on that salary of the NIOC until 1979. 1979, we had the revolution in Iran. When the revolution happened, the new government dissolved the National Iranian Oil Company. And with that, his pension was gone. So in 1979, 1980, the Iranian government executed his other nephew, Hoveyda, and put a clear stuff out that he would be on the list. So he moved to a small studio apartment in Nottingham, England, lived on the salaries and contributions of those Jewish friends that he built, actually died in destitute, unfortunately. He died in destitute. He had no people to check on him, to see how he's doing. So his ending was not that happy in terms of, so that's why I think he needs to be acknowledged in many ways, because he was not only not acknowledged during his work, but he's not even acknowledged when he passed away. The people at the Holocaust Center in Jerusalem sent me an email one time and said, well, by the way, the reason we didn't acknowledge Sardari is because he didn't respond to our messages. Do you know how we can get in touch with him? I mean, it is a nightmare. And an Israeli journalist called me and said, we hear you working on this project. What is it about? How can we get in touch with him? And this Israeli journalist got in touch with me last year. And I said, excuse me, he died in 1981. So there is some kind of interest going back and forth, but there is a lack of knowledge, ignorance, I think, and it is a sad situation. Well, if you have connections in Hollywood,
we don't have any of those. Let me see, are there any other, I think we have for one more question. If there's one more question, please.
Thank you so much for everything. I have a question for you. I know that the Israeli government actually broadcasts into Iran all the time. I know there's a lot of Persians who actually listen. And one of the things they constantly are talking about is the fact that they don't want to be their enemy. Do you think that they've spoken about him and maybe help to really educate the people on a personal level about what he did?
You're talking about the Persian service of the radio and television in Israel, right? The Persian service that, yeah. Yeah. Yes. That's right. That broadcast is mostly, I would say 60% of them about the current news, about the terrorism of the regime, what the guards are doing. Another 10-20%, they suddenly shift to the old friendship between Jews and Iranians to Cyrus the Great. And at the end, they ended with another terrible news. So as probably they ended at one time, they ended with a message from Netanyahu, actually. And so, no, they have not done a good job. That organization is completely controlled by the government. It represents the policies of the government. And although
the Israeli government or the
Israeli government,
yeah.
the Israeli voice of Persian voice, and several people that I know in Israel, like David Menasheri, an Iranian expert in Israel on Iran, refuses to appear on that program. He says every time he's gone on that program, they already had their certain questions set. And they invited him to the program because he speaks fluent Persian. They didn't invite him to the program because of his knowledge. So it is that tension. And do you know how many Iranians are in Israel today?
What?
No, how many? 350,000. There are 350,000 Iranians in Israel.
Israel's had defense ministers, and even a president.
President as an Iranian, and several Iranian immigrants, Jews, who first went to America, have gone back to Israel. They are that structure inside Israel that I've been there. Iranians have a powerful presence in Israel, but they're so taken by the conflict and the ideologies and so forth that they simply do not see the importance of Sardari. So I think, in a way, the ignorance about him is partially the fault of our own community, I think, and partially the fault of our own community, but also partially the fault of the community outside, that we do not acknowledge him like another Schindler. So that's why I call him Iranian Schindler. And I think the best way to do it is to kind of get into people's head about what Schindler did. And then hopefully they will go research him.
Absolutely. Thank you. What a wonderful evening. Thank you. And what I'd like to conclude on is most of you know, I was in Israel a few weeks after the war started. And what was really inspiring while I was there was hearing the stories, I'd say, of maybe Sardaris of today, of Muslims who actually on October 7th gave their lives to save Jewish people who were being attacked, Israeli Muslim civilians, and all who went in and said, maybe I can save people because I'm Muslim, maybe Hamas won't come after me, and gave their lives for that. And also hearing from those communities in Gaza how before October 7th they had, many of their residents had gone out of their way to, when they would hear about sick Gazan children, get them into Israel and drive them up to Tel Aviv for medical care. And so, at this time, unfortunately, there's been a lot of tensions throughout my lifetime between Muslims and Jews in the world, and this might be the highest those tensions have been. But hearing stories like that of Abdul Hussein Sadari can really inspire all of us, and so I hope that we can follow in that example and to be there for our Muslim friends when they're in need, just as we have had Muslim friends who have been there for us in our times of need. And thank you so much for that inspiration.
Thank you.
And thank you all for coming this evening. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Thank you.
That was wonderful.
That was fantastic. Thank you. They love that. Oh, that was amazing. Oh, they love that. That was fantastic. They really got into it. That was really wonderful. Thank you.
Right? Oh, hey, how are you doing on that project?
Yeah.